Welcome to perhaps the most anticipated edition of Wicked Red Weekly presented by Blue Shock, at least by me personally. Head on the show this week, Brendan Dunlop will stop by to discuss a number of Canadian soccer topics after his recent stint calling the Campiel Island Games for One Soccer. We'll, of course, chat Toronto's dramatic win over Atlanta United and get an all-important UFC injury update with Michael Singh. How you doing, Michael, by the way?
Hey, Mitch, thanks for having me, man. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be joined by our two lovely guests that we have here.
Yeah, as Michael said, you may have also noticed an extra face on the screen. Oh, it's gone. But at some point here, Jeffrey P. Nesker has brought on the Michael Jordan to his Scottie Pippen, as the two have just been dunking on people on Twitter all week regarding the decision to not award the 2020 Supporters Shield to the league's best regular season team. We will, of course, get your thoughts as well in the comments, and you can interact with us throughout the show wherever you are watching. But I'll let these guys loose in a minute here. First, I just want to get you guys as riled up as possible by reading the statement made by the Supporters Shield Foundation. After much consideration and discussion, the Supporters Shield Foundation has decided to forego awarding the Supporters Shield for the 2020 season. This is not an easy decision to make. The inability for supporters to be in attendance and fill their stadium with passion, however, one second. We feel as though the current climate goes against the spirit of the Shield. The Supporters Shield Foundation stands with our players and our supporters in knowing that this year has been one of many challenges, and we commend the supporters' support and effort given to making the best of 2020 season as it has been. Basically, they go on to say that they will be touring the Shield in 2021, provided they can, and educating supporters. But there will be no Shield awarded this year. There has been an update. We are currently holding meetings with supporter group representatives about the original decision in light of new information and feedback we have received. A public update will be forthcoming. Boys, have at it, because I know Jeff and Martin certainly, it's been an interesting week for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I've been bad cop and Martin's been math cop, which is awesome. Considering the amount of insults leveled at me by all my new friends about being in an echo chamber, I thought the best way to respond was to actually be in an echo chamber. So here we go. I'll let you start, Martin, because
sure. Yeah, absolutely. When Brendan arrives, it's important to note that he will be the fifth person in this conversation, which is, and none of us have been elected by anyone. That will be exactly the quorum that decided that there wasn't going to be a 5 other people with an oversized sense of importance. And again, I respect history. Thank you so much for creating this award in 1999. I was next to tears in 2017 when we finally won it, because it means something to us. It means something to the players. It means something to the league. Thank you to everyone involved with created in 1999. Thank you for going back and adding the winners of 1996, 97, and 98 to your Shield before the Shield existed, because history is important and continuity is important. So I know this year doesn't feel like any other year, but for 5 people to decide that this year doesn't exist, for 5 people to decide that $1 million MLS Cups and all of these professional athletes being away from their families, that the season is legitimate enough to crown a league champion, but not legitimate enough to crown a Supporters Shield, beggars belief. You would expect that in a big soccer forum, and you would be able to log off and walk away from it. You don't expect it at the adults table of a massive league like this that has got its 25th anniversary and trying to run out that this is just the beginning and the future is yet to come. And you've got a decision like this being made by people like this. And again, it's half-assed. It's not even thought through. At 1:00 in the afternoon, they told us in glorious language it wasn't going to exist because they weren't sold tickets. So they needed to educate us about the history of it. It took them 4.5 hours to come out and thread that with also the schedule's imbalanced. The schedule, which has been out since March 18th, is imbalanced. The schedule that's been imbalanced 23 of the 25 years in league history. You know who else has an unbalanced schedule? Every Major League Baseball season, every NFL season, every NBA season. Unbalanced does not equal unfair. If we play the other 25 teams in the league but double up and triple up on Columbus and Montreal like we do every year, and someone else plays all 25 teams, but doubles up against LAFC and Seattle, that isn't unbalanced in the same way. There's no such thing as unbalanced in the same way. It's strength of schedule. Okay, so Michael, we're going to have a little foot race. I am going to race Mitch, and then
You're
I'm
losing
gonna
that
race
race, by the way.
Jeffrey, and then I'm going to race Brendan. You are going to race Usain Bolt 3 times. I raced 3 different guys. You only raced one dude. So obviously, Michael, I'm getting in trouble for being too loud. Obviously, my 3 races count more than your 1 race because you only raced 1 person. The idea of facing different teams and then how having some sort of magical value to it is insane. So what adults do is they use math. And what adults find out are the top 3 leading teams in the Shield right now had the 3 toughest schedules when you break down their 23 opponents and take away the points that they took part in their matches. Toronto FC, Philadelphia, and Columbus Crew have had the 3 toughest schedules. That's what balance. That's the difference between unbalanced and unfair. And that took 45 minutes for some dude to do instead of the crossword puzzle on a Sunday afternoon. So when 5 people that didn't even try to figure out whether it was unfair or not decide they're going to yank a trophy, it doesn't cut water for me.
I mean, I'm going to echo everything you said, and I'm going to say that it is absolutely reprehensible, this decision. Reprehensible. There is, in my opinion, there is no coming back from this. There's zero. There are suggestions for a full revamp, and I think they are wonderful suggestions. That being said, who is going to do it? This organization cannot police themselves. That is not on the table. And no one, especially the league, is going to step in and incur any responsibility to do this. Their day in the sun is over. There is no coming back to this for me whatsoever. I don't care. I don't care anymore because this is a deal breaker for me. Soccer is the great equalizer. You do not need $100 to buy equipment. You can tie plastic bags together wherever you are in the world and play the damn sport. All right? The second that gatekeepers come into this thing, that's when I start throwing elbows. All right? I cannot abide the attitude, and I refuse to abide the attitude. The concept that my support is somehow better than your support is absolute BS. And there is, and all of the language, every little bit of vague, word salad that this organization has put out has supported that concept. There has been nothing to the contrary. And I do not believe for a second that the blowback that has forced this reimagining. Not for 1 second do I believe that it has anything to do with what the fine, upstanding people, mostly TFC fans, on Twitter have been saying. It's because the league, within 24 hours, eliminated every mention of the Supporters' Shield from every article. All right? So, I do not need a magic crystal ball to divine what's going on here. The league called their bluff, and now they're scared. It's disingenuous. It began as disingenuous, and it's over. It's over. All right? I love the Shield. I love the idea of the Shield, but we can't have nice things. We've proven that we can't have nice things. And the cost, both in manpower and in actual money, which these morons have been using as a we pay for the Shield and we pay for the plane tickets. Give me a break. Give me a break. Seriously. Like, I graduated high school a long time ago. I do not want to be in the high school cafeteria anymore. And that's what this feels like. And you know what? You can have your Shield because you don't represent my support. You don't represent the league that I want to play in. And you certainly don't represent the players. All right. You've made that abundantly clear. This is for you to prop up your own street credibility. And I want none of it. Zero.
The fact that they didn't reach out to the players or the Players Association beforehand, it's one thing to not reach out to the league, but to not reach out to the Players Association, the thing that you've been fostering for 21 years. And I genuinely thank you for creating this. And I genuinely thank you for fostering it. And I genuinely thank you for making me value this and making the players value it. But you don't get to yank it away. You know why the NHL exists? Because the Stanley Cup was there first. Do you know why the CFL exists? Because the Grey Cup was there first. Do you know why the Canadian Soccer Championship plays for the Voyager Cup, which existed before the tournament? All of these things had trophies first. So this is not the first time that a trophy has been introduced by an outsider. But as someone pointed out on Twitter yesterday, this may be time to thank the Supporters Shield Committee for their services. We can still have them hand out the shield every year. This can still be a symbol of the, well, for me, this can still be a symbol of the love that the players want to show to the
not
players.
with any of these people behind it.
I'll tell you this, as someone who's been behind the scenes at multiple championships in multiple leagues, in 2015, the Hockey Hall of Fame was still in charge of the Stanley Cup, and there's a lot of glorious stories told about the Stanley Cup and the beauty of it and its history, and it was controlled by the Hockey Hall of Fame, and the big thing was it can't be in the stadium before puck drop. That's bad luck. So it was always arrived after puck drop, except Chicago had a rainstorm and had a horrible traffic jam. And the cup didn't get there until an hour after the game was over. And all the players and all the TV had to wait around for an hour for the cup to show up after the season was over. Do you know who doesn't control the Stanley Cup anymore? The Hockey Hall of Fame. The NHL now controls it. The Hockey Hall of Fame gets to bring it out. The Hockey Hall of Fame gets to wear white gloves. But the NHL, as far as I understand, now controls the day-to-day operations. And I think that's what you're going to see for the Shield. Because of all the professional sports leagues I've ever been involved with, the one thing that is universal, commissioners hate to be embarrassed publicly and rarely afford the opportunity to those who embarrass them to do it a second time. This is the last time any trophy in the MLS will ever be decided by someone outside of the league offices. I promise you.
Testify 100%. I do not want this association or anybody involved in this decision getting any perks whatsoever. I do not want free plane tickets. I do not want them wearing white gloves walking out. This began because of self-importance. If we rewarded in any way, shape, and form, it's a Band-Aid solution. The opportunity has been presented to rewrite the narrative, and it needs to be rewritten. I'm sorry. There's no coming back from this. No mea culpa will do. And I want to make sure I got this point out, because I know you're not going to believe me, but I wish TFC were out of the contention, because I would be raging just as hard. I know nobody believes me, but I would be raging just as hard. This is absolute garbage. All right? This is garbage. And it should not wash.
Sorry to interject here. This has been everything I've hoped and dreamed it would be, and more from the two of you. Martyn, we're gonna have to let you go here. Brendan Dunlop's here.
Oh no, he's got one.
Do me one favor.
Go ahead.
I'll leave. I'll hang up and I'll listen to the call. But ask Brendan whether Lewis Hamilton's going to grab him 2 in Portugal this weekend. Okay. Thanks for the time, guys.
Love you, Martyn. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it, Martyn.
Cheers.
Yeah, certainly a lot of good points made. The one thing I will say quickly, if I am the coach of either the Montreal Impact or the Vancouver Whitecaps, I'm putting an entire Twitter feed up right now, because the amount of disrespect towards them the past little bit in terms of the Supporters Shield conversation has been kind of hilarious. Like, I know Montreal and Vancouver, we clown on Vancouver all the time, aren't great teams, but these are both teams that are in playoff spots right now. I know it's super expanded right now, but both of these teams having not bad seasons. It's not like Toronto FC played a couple of League One Ontario teams for a couple months, and that's how they build up their points. So I think that for me has been one of the things that stood out this week as kind of hilarious. Notice I didn't mention Canadian Premier League teams. I didn't want to take them off. went down a rung to League One Ontario.
Well, I mean, the narrative is I hate wearing a tinfoil hat. I really, really do. But it's difficult to see this Supporters Shield fiasco as not, the timing is just so suspect. It's so suspect. And you have to think, God, I got to stop talking about this. I need a vacation. But, it's just the timing is so suspect. You can't not think that the quorum of 5, it wasn't like, well, Toronto's running away with it, and might as well just gang up on the Canadians. I hate this tinfoil hat garbage. I hate it.
Hold on, Jeff. I got you. So I think Jeff kind of highlighted it best, but realistically, this was the Supporters Shield wanted attention. They wanted the spotlight on the history of what the Shield meant, and it just got totally misconstrued. And I don't think their intentions were bad, but the result obviously is terrible. And I just think the decision is just so brutal. I think Michael Bradley kind of put this best after the game. You have a lot of people in the league, players, coaches, executives, who are putting in their all to grow the game, grow the league, grow everything there is to do with MLS. And they're putting their every day, hours of work into this. And for a supporter shield group, a group of 5 people, to turn around and kind of tarnish that, I think that's where it really, really hits the players, really hits the league itself. And I think that's just where they got it completely wrong.
Mike, a tour? Are you kidding? Are you kidding? They're going to take it on tour? An object that I can explain in half a sentence. They're going to take it on tour. What is it really? They want everybody to sit around and celebrate them. You know, you're the supporter shield people. Oh, wow. Tell me about your wonderful experiences. It was, and it never will be about them. All right. And that's what it became. So I don't think that the decision was coming from the right place. I think it was coming from a place of self-righteous horse crap, if we're being honest. I can't believe I haven't sworn yet. Wow.
Yeah, the CRTC has been watching very carefully, but you've done a good job so far, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brendan, sorry to kekeep you waiting. As has
All
been
good,
the case
man.
on Twitter and elsewhere, we've basically been yelling about the Supporter Shield decision not to be awarded since this show started. What are your thoughts on the league? Well, it's not the league's decision, even the decision from the Supporter Shield Foundation to not award the Shield this year.
Yeah, I agree that it definitely came from a self-righteous place of like, well, this Shield exists because of us, and we're as much a part of this, and we haven't been able to be a part of this season the same way. So we're taking our ball and we're going home. But
Exactly.
I don't think that. At the same time, I also don't think that they saw the backlash or the impact that it actually would have had on the players. The reaction from the players in the league, I think, probably surprised the Supporter Shield group more so than the reaction of the fans, which obviously a typical reaction. But I'm not buying a ticket to go on tour to see that thing. And
what league are they following if they didn't anticipate a backlash? I mean, it boggles the mind. Well, we're taking the ball away 3 weeks before the end of the season. We didn't expect people to get upset is a sentence that does not have a single shred of logic in it whatsoever.
Well, it could be because they didn't think that there was that many passionate, angry Canadians. They're like, what? They can't write us letters. The service is dying. They're not going to write us letters. We're good.
Yeah, exactly. Which brings us right back to square one, which is, screw Canada, which is also horrifying. But I got a question next. Oh wow, this is such a non sequitur. What was the weirdest part of the Island Games for you?
What was the weirdest part of the Island Games? Did you say?
Mm-hmm.
The strangest part was that, anytime, and I'm not the first person to have called the game from a phone booth on a monitor, but the weirdest part about doing that was doing that 5,000 miles away and still being in the same country, or feeling like 5,000 miles at least, and not having any fans. That was definitely the strangest part. There was some technical challenges with the stadium, putting the virtual stadium in, which affected the broadcast both for the viewer and for myself, which I'm looking at the same monitor that you guys are looking at. But overall, I thought that the presentation was great. The virtual stands, made it feel bigger than the standless pitch that it was out there in Prince Edward Island. But not having the fans was definitely strange. However, I really did enjoy hearing all the banter, and unlike some of the other leagues, you're actually picking up 99% of it in English, and all its vulgarity and all its authenticity. So I really did enjoy that part, and I feel like I made a point at several times, warning maybe some of the parents who were surprised to hear some of the words coming through the broadcast, but also to remind us of the time that we're in, and that there was one positive and one real difference I felt in this period is to be able to hear everything that's being said, and no matter what your relationship is with the game, I think everyone was a little bit surprised, even if it was just in one specific player. I didn't think this player was as vocal, and wow, I can hear him the entire match. or the coaches. You know, I thought Jimmy Brennan would yell more, and there's Jimmy Brennan yelling, or whatever it might be. So I think there was a lot of cool things to take from it. It really was I thought a great 5-6 weeks for the league, and I'm really happy that they were able to get it in and execute the tournament in Prince Edward Island.
I have a follow-up to that. Was that of your own volition, the constant reminders of cuss words to the parents and younger audiences? Was that a mandate coming down from the top? Because it is something I've noticed, not just on One Soccer, but certainly on European coverage and most definitely on TSN coverage. There's the warning at the top of both halves. But then when something really nefarious happens, there's also a call at the moment, just sort of, sorry if you heard any questionable language. I wonder if that's sort of a pay-as-you-go kind of thing, or if it goes right from the top.
There was just an expectation that if there was anything egregious, if they happened to catch a player on an ISO and it was very clear, then acknowledge it. But there was never there was no mandate to have a formal warning or to mention every time. It was just something that I felt in the moment. Cool. I heard it, and I think it's for anyone who's working in broadcast, you're surprised in a broadcast to hear vulgar language. So there's also that reaction, like, oh, and they've caught that. So I felt it was just worthy of an acknowledgement every few times that it caught me off guard or surprised me in the moment, I guess. And surprisingly, it actually did a few times. You get into the rhythm, you're calling the game, there's a flow, and then okay, he really hated that pass. All right.
I'll tell you what surprised me. Every time they put your little score bug, your little Brendan Dunlop thing on, I didn't know if it was going to be the live action one or just the holding photo. So sometimes like a phantom Brendan Dunlop started doing like poses in the left-hand corner of my screen inexplicably. And I was like, well, that's neat. But anyway.
They did that the day of my first game. And the advice I got, I can't remember if it was from Adam Jenkins or Andy Petrillo, was dress comfortable. Like, okay, great. And being a studio guy, I'm used to being in a suit for 6-7 hours. Dress comfortable, amazing. I'm just going to dress like everyone is dressed during a pandemic. Sweatpants, a comfortable shirt. I wore a hat. I wore a Bayern Munich hat that day. I think I forget where they were in the Champions League. But I thought, hey, a little bit of Canadian content, Canadian luck for my first match there. And I get there, and the one of the video people is like, oh, we want to shoot some animations. I'm like, okay, great. What do you need me for? Like, oh no, we want to shoot this graphic for you. I'm like, I look like I'm wearing pajamas. What do you mean? So, not to mention, I look like a caveman. I hadn't yet invested in a proper beard trimmer. So I got a kick out of that, though. I'm glad that it stood out to you too. Quite a few times it stood out to me. Like, hey, guys, you hadn't changed that. Remember when we reshot that when I wore adult clothing?
That's hilarious.
Amazing.
Brendan, I kind of want to take that opportunity to sort of segue into Toronto FC and sort of the perspective they have in this country. They're a team that's reached the MLS Cup final 3 times in the past 4 years. They're ahead of the Supporters Shield race, I think, by 6 points. I think today they had over a 50% chance, according to 538, for winning the MLS League, let's call it, because there's no more Shield, right? So, are they getting the respect they kind of deserve in this country with the way that soccer's growing internationally? And because to me, I kind of feel like they're a real success story that's kind of getting a little overlooked in sort of the whole national landscape of things.
Yeah, I agree with you. And sadly, that's the case with any soccer news story, it seems like, and any soccer moment, that it doesn't get the market share in a very crowded sports landscape, especially this year with all leagues competing at the same time there through August and September. I think that it's going to get a bit more attention as the year goes on, because the games will be of more importance, and that's the case with all sports. Actually, you look at baseball and the difference in the numbers, between August and September when the Jays start actually chasing a playoff spot and the playoff numbers, and they're huge. And TFC's numbers will reflect that too, and then the attention from major media and the placement in the paper, or how high up on the scroll, that'll come along with it as well. But I've always felt like soccer doesn't get the attention it deserves, and it only kind of gets a bigger piece of the pie when the moment is really big. And I think TFC have shown a lot of consistency and where they've grown as an organization, how successful they've become in the league, and they're a great story that deserves 24/7 coverage. I'm obviously super biased because I love football and I want to see us get to a point in this country where that is the norm and not
Mhm.
the exception or dependent on success. But yeah, I think that Toronto FC definitely deserved more attention because they've been absolutely dominating an American league.
With a quick follow up to that, with the 2026 World Cup on the horizon, it's going to be, here on home soil. Do you think that changes at all? The sort of perception of Canadian soccer as a whole, and maybe maybe not this year, but maybe the next couple of years. You look overseas, you see what Alphonso Davies is doing, you see what Jonathan David's doing, and locally, you see what Toronto FC is doing, the Canadian Premier League, and then you think about the 2026 World Cup. Do you think that we're going to see more coverage of soccer on television, maybe?
I would hope so. I got to be honest. In 6 years, I don't know what our consumption will be like. Will it be on television in the same way that it is today, or will we be watching on Twitch because there's 7 hours of pre and post coverage around it? It's crazy. Someone said this to me that the pandemic has taken the change in media and basically turned it into dog years. So whereas as 1 year the trends change, it's really that five years have passed based on how broadcast traditionally had progressed and media had progressed in the past, and it's just thrown it into hyperspeed. So I would like to think that I do believe that having World Cup games in this country will really elevate the status of the game and put it at a place where the minimum level of attention will be much higher than it is now. It might be at the max of where the attention is now, but I think that will be the minimum, and it will have a monumental effect on the attitudes, I think, of Canadians as to where soccer fits, much the same way USA '94 did in the United States. And I want to think that, and I know that you guys have spoken with some ex-pros, and you've heard probably Danny Dichio and Craig Forrest and some others talk about how the perception of the Canadian game internationally has grown so much in a short period of time because of players like Junior Hoylett, to a big extent as well, even players like Jonathan de Guzman, who have put the Canadian flag on the map, although he plays for Holland now. Over there, he was definitely a Canadian, for a very, very long time. Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David. Now there's an expectation, and you look at all the loan transfers for the Canadian Premier League shows that people are paying attention to Canada. The world's game is beginning to pay attention to this country. So I hope that kind of jump and that status jump, I guess, is the same on the attention side in this country as it seems to have been in the soccer community internationally.
Yeah, we've got something from Will Dunn, who mentioned that the CFL seems to be hurting. I wonder if that will be a good thing for Canadian soccer as far as more TV time slots available.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I do feel as though they're two very different fan bases, right? I do think that it is, it is. They're not as related as
the owners
not as related.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and it's also I don't think it's as related as we would think in a Canadian just from a Canadian marketplace. But I do think that that there being one less attention grabber, one less toy in the shop window will shield more attention for the others. And I think that soccer has shown that it can capture a big portion of that. And I think that in the United States too, soccer has shown in a lot of communities where it was dominated by college sports, more so than professional sports, that they can really have a huge regional grab. So I think that's growth is possible here in this country too, but I just don't know if they're going to be, turning out at Mosaic Stadium clamoring for a Canadian national team match against Belize.
There's also the CFL CanPL overlap, which I feel like, so maybe it's not the greatest for Canadian soccer from that regard, considering all the, some of the ownership groups and some of the venues as well that these teams play in might not be the greatest. I did want to talk quickly about One Soccer because you mentioned the Canadian sports landscape, and this is something new. It's in its infancy, but it is a Canadian channel dedicated only to soccer, and that does seem very exciting because this isn't something that we've really had in the past. I know there was Goal back in the day, but this being Canadian only, how excited are you about this and where we can go from here with One Soccer?
Great question.
Honestly, I think it really is incredible because it's the first time that we've had one network focused solely on football. I know Goal TV, did it as well, but they had American obligations and they had other things going on. That it was a different time. It was very much a different time. And I think One Soccer has been able to really grab hold of Canadian soccer and push it in a way that it hasn't been able to been pushed before. And with the removal of the score, you think back to 10 years ago, James Sharman and Christian Jack and I did the footy show. There was a real void at that time that we were able to fill because the big networks focused on their properties for the most part. There wasn't much dressing around it. And we had this kind of great space to float and be, in a lot of ways, I think in North America, very much ahead of the time, but be kind of how the podcast scene is in Britain now is what the footy show was able to do and kind of really be the only one. And translate that to television as well. And now you have One Soccer that's able to do that all the time. And the content that they were pumping out during the pandemic, before the Island Games, I felt like they very much kept the attention of people who needed a distraction during that time for sure, but also wanted to have Canadian soccer to talk about and Canadian soccer to have the spotlight on. So having the Island Games was great, and I look forward to seeing what the future holds for One Soccer, because they're definitely giving the game in this country the push that we all want.
Has anybody ever called you Mo Salah before? Because you just got a shout on our private chat that guy with the beard looks like Salah. Yeah, well, there you go. You learned something new today.
Earlier in the pandemic, I was getting John Krasinski a lot.
Nice.
Yeah, I see that. Longer. Yeah. My hair was more Some Good News style before, so I think it was that. But yeah, no, I get a lot of hey, how's the Coppa Italia? I get that quite a few times now. The flow is like Mitch and I have the same hair. I've never really had it like at this level before. So
wow, that's spectacular.
Mitch, you got the wings going on and everything.
Yeah,
Mitch, do you got sea salt spray?
Of course I have sea salt spray. Is that even a question?
I didn't actually know what the hell it was, so
we'll do a product placement thing later on in the show. But,
awesome.
Yeah. Brendan, thanks so much for joining us this week. I almost considered not having you on because you compared Pablo Piatti's goal to Ross Barkley's screamer against my Leicester City, and that absolutely broke my heart. But I do really appreciate you coming on.
Well, for those who might not have known before where my allegiances lie, it's very clear now. And that was a heck of a day. I'm living a dream right now, Mitch.
Top of the
Aston
league.
Villa, top of the.
I think we lost him.
That's a great time to cut him off.
Yeah,
great time to cut him off.
The soccer gods, the StreamYard gods do not like Aston Villa. Confirmed.
I guess that's it.
Thanks, Brendan.
Cheers, guys. I
appreciate
having
that.
Cheers, Brendan.
Yeah, thanks, Brendan. Awesome stuff.
Right.
I really like that he talked about the score there back in the day, because that was literally my childhood. I couldn't wait for those half-an-hour segments of James Sharman going off and showing us some highlights of soccer, because we never used to get that growing up. I played the game growing up, and I love that show. So it's great to hear him touch on that a little bit. It was ahead of its time, because if that show's on today, I'm watching that for sure.
Yeah, my first trip to the UK. Someone was in the hostel I was staying in. Someone had Match of the Day on, and I was like, "What is this?" and that was the beginning, early stages of my soccer obsession. Two things I wanted to mention that I hope we get time for. One is TFC is in the number one in the power rankings again, but I've heard that there were so many power outages in 2020. That they might take away the power rankings because it's not in the spirit of 2020. And the other thing I wanted to say was that was it, because the other stuff's going to take too long. So
good. Thank you for recognizing that, Jeff. But let's talk about some actual games, guys. I know the Supporters
still
Shield
a team
thing,
here. There's still a team.
Definitely deserved its day in the sun, but we've got that done now, hopefully. And let's move on to Toronto FC's late win against Atlanta United, which again, we don't know what that means for them in the long term in terms of this race, but another character win by this team, honestly. I mean, both teams were really exhausted throughout this game. You could see it, especially in the midfield. You saw Oso go off early. Delgado definitely didn't have his best day. He looked tired as well. The difference for me, I know Toronto FC played 2 games this week. The difference for me was the substitutions. When Greg brought on Richie obviously was the big one, but DeLeon and I thought Jaden as well, even Liam, like they provided a ton of energy off the bench. I love what Liam was doing, almost in that Toe St. Ricketts role, where just chasing guys, chasing those tired defenders. And, obviously Richie was like directly in that goal itself, but I thought all of those guys, and particularly Jaden, played a role in Toronto FC being the stronger team there at the end.
Mike, do you think that was Jaden's best performance in a red shirt?
No.
Oh, wow.
I actually thought he was better the day before against Cincinnati. I thought he was a little bit more aggressive. And I thought he was a little bit more willing just to be more dynamic because he is a game breaker. And he's like Richard Larrea, where I honestly think that he can turn a game on its head with just one moment. And I don't think we saw him try enough of that against Atlanta United there. I saw it was one opportunity where he kind of took a few defenders on, and then he took a big touch and lost the ball. But personally, I think there's a lot more. It's just there's so much more this kid can do, and I think that we will see it before the end of this year. That's my prediction. Another thing I did want to touch, Mitch, you touched on the substitutions there. I actually thought Atlanta United looked unreal in the second half after they made those subs and they brought on those two designated players. Like I thought they looked dangerous. They looked like a team I did not want to face playoff time.
New Almiron was everywhere. What's his name? Moreno. He was everywhere. Like
is it Barca? Is that him?
No. The other guy, the guy they replaced Petey with. He was everywhere. I mean, he was popping up on the left side of midfield, right side of midfield. He was defending. He was everywhere. And his first touch is so silky. What a dangerous player! Like, I mean, the two things. Laurent Simon, say what you will, that man can pass. Holy crap, that man can pass. I mean, there were a few cross field deliveries he was just spraying balls and they were landing at on a dime. And the other thing is I got to throw out my bingo card because who the hell had Pablo Piatti scoring a goal with his head on their 2020 bingo card?
Smallest guy on the field, I think it was, who managed to get his head to that. And I think Greg Vanney said after the match that, and we've seen a bunch of videos of this, is Pablo Piatti is a fantastic, soccer ping pong kind of player. If you guys have seen the game where you kind of head it across instead of using a paddle and whatnot. And he said that was kind of like one of those goals where he kind of just like, grazed it into the corner, directed it there. What I wanted to talk about a little bit about Piatti was his movement and just how much he's moving and how much ground he's actually covering, because the biggest question mark with Piatti, obviously, before the season was his knee and whether or not he'd be the same player. If I told you that he would be the guy who covers the most ground on Toronto FC, would you have believed me at the beginning of the season? Heck no. He averages the third most distance cover per game in MLS. And that's coming off a knee injury, which is quite amazing. And, at times, do I wish he'd be a bit more aggressive and have that little Javinko kind of swagger in him where he can take defenders on one-on-one and, go directly to goal? Yes. But at the same time, he's linked up perfectly with Paz and he's doing everything that is being asked of him. And he's settled into this role as a true team player. And that's something also Vanney has emphasized, is how unselfish Pablo Piatti is and how much of a great guy he is off the field. So he's completely bought in, he's sold, and he settled, it looks like. And it was great to see him get the goal, because I think he's gone 7 without a goal, and it's great to see everyone kind of get going as TFC near their most important stretch of the season here coming up.
I actually think that TFC has evolved both culturally and systematically away from the kind of team that would allow a Giovinco to just have a free roll over everything. I think that it's been stressed, that kind of team aesthetic in a certain way. That's not to say that, on the field of play, if he's got the opportunity, why not pull a Seba versus New York Red Bulls and make us all squeal for 5 years? But I do think that that the general vibe of the team has moved away from expecting that. So
that's a great point. I think that's a testament to kind of the player that Alejandro Pozuelo is, who's by far our closest thing to Sebastian Javinko. Obviously, completely different players, but that's just because Pozuelo does all the work with his mind. He does the work off he moves the ball really well. Where Seba was amazing when he was on the ball. That was Seba's specialty, and they're just completely different players. And I think you hit the nail on the head. There's not going to be another ego, I guess, on this team that they get the ball and they're going. It's a team game now for Toronto FC, and they're the deepest team that 2017 was something else. But I think this team is this close in terms of depth. I really do.
Yeah, I apologize because I don't remember who mentioned it on Twitter. But a great point was made that they had to get this signing right because Michael Bradley took a huge pay cut for this designated player signing, and I think Bradley's got to be happy with what Toronto FC's had out of Pablo Piatti because like you guys have said, the effort he puts in is second to pretty much none on this team.
It's crazy.
I wonder if that stance has changed at all for Bradders, from perhaps the moment they signed Piatti to now, because I know that stance has definitely changed in a lot of Toronto FC fans' minds for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good point as well. I did also like you mentioning Laurent Simon because I thought as well he had a fantastic performance. And for me, I think there's such a massive difference when you start Simon versus when you bring him off the bench. Because when he comes off the bench, he just doesn't have the flow of the game. And he's had some tough moments. I know it was a couple of games back, he almost scored on his own net on a back pass. But I do think starting Laurent Simon, he's had, I think, 3 starts now, and I think he's looked very solid in all 3 of them. So I think there is a massive difference.
Toughest position to be substituted on.
Without question.
For sure.
Without question. Yeah. Absolutely.
You can come on. You can kind of hide as a winger. You can kind of settle in as a central midfielder with some support. But as a center back, you're exposed, and everything that you do is magnified, right? So that's a great point that you made there, Mitch. And Simon obviously does excel when he's starting. I think Eric Zavaleta does as well. I'll go back to him as well. And what I want to do is I want to get forward and I want to talk about Saturday's match because I know we don't have much time, but this match is shaping up to be an absolute doozy. And I touched on it. This is the most important stretch of the Toronto FC schedule. And it starts, on Saturday versus the second place Philadelphia Union. How are you guys feeling about, TFC's chances heading into that game?
Good. I feel good.
It's such an interesting game because this should be a supporters shield clash. And
what's that? What's that?
Yeah, exactly.
None of that word on our show.
Supporters what? Supposed?
This should be a game that's massive in the supporters shield standings. But
stop it.
all of a sudden it's there's just a little bit less excitement because we don't know what the end of the regular season award is. But these are, in my mind at the moment, MLS's 2 best teams going up against each other. Jeff, you have a point on this?
Well, they've confirmed Aronson's move. All right.
Yeah.
So is he going to play at 100% now, or is he going to try to carry out the season and not maybe blow out his ACL?
You're a 23-year-old. You're playing soccer. Like you're getting on the pitch when the game starts. The whistle blows. Like you're telling me you're not going to go full sprint. If a ball's in front of me, you're not going to go sprint at that ball. You're going to think, let me stop. Think I have a move coming up to Europe. Let me not go into this. Like
sure. But then you get injured, and your agent and your whole family look at you like you're the biggest ass. And do you know what I mean? Like. No. I don't know. I don't know. I'm obviously not.
Would his transfer go away if he's injured? Would his transfer go away if he's injured?
I don't know. Probably not. I don't think so.
I actually. Yeah, I'm with Michael.
Can you do that? Can you do that? Can you sign a player and then if they get injured in the space between them arriving, revoke the deal?
It probably obviously depends how far along they are in the paperwork and whatnot.
Yeah.
But to that same point, like Aronson, I'm sure he loves Philly. I think his brother's there in the club as well. Like there's family ties to this club. It might be his last, couple games for Philly. Don't you want to, go out for that city and, do everything you can to leave on the high note and win the MLS Cup for that city? I don't know. I have a tough time, finding that argument where he's going to go light, won't go as hard because he's already sold. I don't know. These are kids. These are kids who love the game.
Yeah.
I go. My point on this is just that I think it's actually a weight off his shoulders. I think he can play looser now, knowing that he's secured this move and that, you know, all the speculation and everything that's been around him for the past couple of weeks is gone. He's moving on. So I think that's what it is for me.
I am far too neurotic to be a professional soccer player.
Yeah.
Let me just,
I could have told you that.
I can confirm that Jeff was way too angry to write the Supporter Shield article when the news broke. He told me that he couldn't because he would have been too angry, and he's very much right when he's angry. So
instead, I wrote 6 essays on Twitter and just like collected skulls. That would Yeah.
But you did mention injuries with Brendan Aronson. I think we should finish the show off with what's unfortunately become a segment on the show, which is the Michael Singh injury update. Michael, let's get a couple of updates here because we mentioned Seymour. He was in the lineup because Chris Mavinga was out. What's the update on? We'll go Mavinga, Osorio, and Akinolix. I think those are the 3 most pressing and interesting ones for TFC right now.
For sure. I hate how this is a segment. Can we trademark it though? I like that injury update. So yeah, let's start with Mavinga and Akinola. I think KJ gave this update beforehand on Twitter that both of them had sort of minor strains that they were dealing with. What I will say is that Greg Vanney, before last game, he alluded to the fact that his team did pick up a couple knocks, but he did emphasize that they were nothing of significance, nothing of that would worry him, you know, of them being out of contention come playoff time. So I'll leave it at that for the Chris Mavinga and Iowa Akinola injuries. We'll get further updates, obviously, as we speak to the TFC brass later this week. As far as Ozo goes, it sounds like Ozo was he had something lingering in that match, and Greg Vanney was aware of it. I think Ozo gave Greg Vanney a look perhaps 10 minutes before he was subbed off, and he was trying to tell Greg Vanney he can't really sprint. And obviously 10 minutes later, he does come off. And Greg Vanney did say after the match that he does hope it is precautionary, just based off what Ozo was telling him and whatnot. And I don't want to speculate too much, but just from the sounds of the way that Greg Vanney is describing it, sounds like a little bit of a hip flexor injury. So you never know with those. If you get in front of those things before obviously anything serious happens, you'll be fine. A couple days rest, some ice, some physio work, you'll be okay. But if that thing did strain and he did pull it, you're looking at a couple weeks there. He's sidelined. So hopefully better than worse for Ozo there. But it does sound like everything that TFC is dealing with right now, aside from Josie Altidore, is minor.
Yeah, I think the week off couldn't have come at a better time for Toronto FC, certainly in terms of, how tired they were and some of these minor knocks they've picked up, and also, the preparation it gives them for this game against the Philadelphia Union, which, as we've mentioned, is massive regardless of what its implications are. But that does bring us to the end of another great edition of Waking the Red Weekly, presented by Footy Talks.
Thursday.
Big thank you.
Thursday.
Oh, that too. Yeah, Jeff, do you want to preview us for Forge against
We'll fight and we'll win.
All right, thank you, Jeff. A big thank
you don't know.
Well.
You don't get the reference. It's the Seattle Sounders super fan. The meme. No, he doesn't get the reference.
Jeff, you are the most involved person in MLS Twitter that I know. By far. There's no way anyone else is coming up with that off the top of their head. There's no way.
God, we're going to do a poll. We're going to do a poll.
All right.
Because I guarantee you that at least 5 people got it instantly. Okay.
I like it. Guys,
it wasn't
comment.
these 2.
If any of you are still listening right now, comment if you got that. I want to hear it.
You know who those 5 people were? They're all sitting in a boardroom together deciding.
Oh yeah.
That's a good note to end that on.
As we started, full circle. Thank you again to Brendan Dunlop, though. Thank Joel and Martyn Bailey for stopping by, dropping some truth on people. George got the comment, so
immediately.
That's so unsurprised. That doesn't even count. Yeah, that doesn't count. Thanks to Kevin and Sophia for homestand. Michael, especially Jeff. The intro looks great. We'll be continuing to work on that, but.
That's all Jeff
listening.
On the graphics, guys. That's all Jeff on the graphics.
Absolutely.
Just wait until you that was 1.0. Just wait until you see where it's going. It's going to be on.
Yeah. Excited for that. Thanks for listening, watching, interacting. We've been loving the comments coming in. There's been some language in some of those. We can't put them up on the screen, but we do see them and appreciate the sentiment. But until next Tuesday, everyone, have a great week.
See you guys.
Cheers.